You're listening to KWOU. Coming up next, the amazing, unbelievable adventures of Dr. Theophilius Crux, Ph.D., and his faithful companion Archibald, the Tasmanian emu. Congratulations on 10 episodes. Your accomplishments are infinitesimal. As for me, this is my infinity. As previously stated, we're doing something different today. I've been wanting to feature writers from Woo on this show. Let your mind bask in the sun-baked brine of their protean prose and let mine sink deep into the abyssal zone for a while. I don't want to burn myself out on a story that I feel has just begun or overload a schedule I anticipate to be busy. Thus, I want to see what's inside the eyes within the ears of other people, and today, that other person is Josiah Lijiequest. And don't worry. We'll still hear from Fuchsia and Augustine and everyone, and with a poem at the end, because despite it all, this is still the amazing, unbelievable adventures of Dr. Theophilius Crux, Ph.D., and his faithful companion Archibald, the Tasmanian emu. So, to begin our sojourn into the lush Lijiequestian wilderlands that grace the face of one of two minds in this place, we have Josiah Lijiequest in the studio with us to answer a few questions concerning the quiddity of candidness as it concerns the inner view of which the questions have upon you, Josiah. Are you prepared?
Dude, I'm prepared for anything, man. That psychedelic song in the beginning got me prepared for anything, so I am totally down.
I'm glad you like it. I highly recommend the work of Cosmo Sheldrake. What are your pronouns? What are your nouns? What are your adjectives?
Oh, I'm a he. I'm a dude. I identify as a dude.
Sure. So that's your noun. What about your adjective?
My dude, I haven't heard of this. What's it?
What adjectives do you have?
I don't know. Crazy.
Crazy. That's a good adjective.
Bonkers.
Bonkers.
And honest.
Honest. Crazy, bonkers, honest.
But to be the first, you have to be the latter. To be the latter, you have to be the first. Either one.
That is fair. If you were trapped in a movie, Jumanji style, which would it be?
Which one would it be? The one with Karen Gillan.
Karen Gillan, okay. Are you free on Saturday, or are your actions predetermined on Saturday?
My actions are predetermined. I work at Domino's. So.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's the tagline. Domino's, your actions are predetermined.
Exactly.
Yeah. What were you thinking when you let that polka band stay in your apartment rent-free?
No comment.
No comment, okay. Can we ever go back to the way it was before?
No, we really can't. Even though Gatsby likes to say we can repeat the past, I tend to differ with that belief. But
how long have you been writing?
How long have I been writing? That's a good question. Probably since I was forced to. When I was, 5 or 6. I was homeschooled, so, my mom was super into grammar, writing, all that. And I actually hated writing and reading until I'd say around college time. About that time where I just, I knew I had to read and write to get good grades, and I started enjoying some of the stories. The first story I ever got into, I don't want to go on a tangent here, but was Winter Dreams. Was Winter Dreams by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I don't know, he just struck a chord, in my heart. I felt like I knew the guy, like he knew me, even though he was dead for 70 years. And when you have that connection, it makes you want to read more. So, I think after that moment was really, I would say, sparked the fire of what I wanted to write.
On that note, what does inspiration feel like?
Inspiration. So inspiration feels like something, it's inside of you and it has to get out. It has to get out somewhere. So, it could either be you talk with a friend about someone that you're like, wow, this person's really cool. Or you talk about something you saw that's like, wow, this is amazing. You come out and talk, but preferably to an artist, it comes out in something like words or in music. And as Oscar Wilde quoted from someone back there in the Victorian times, all music aspires to be art. So, or all art aspires to be music. Sorry.
I like the first one better. If countries were edible and you were at a global all-you-can-eat country buffet, which one would you eat first?
Which one would I eat first? Oh, yeah. France.
France.
For sure.
Why France?
The food, the accents, the women.
Just all of it.
I don't know, man. France is just a very tasty country. I would think that might sound stereotypical, but as an American, I've romanticized France. I won't even deny it.
What is 6.5 squared, and more importantly, does your mother know about it?
No comment. Don't ask me math questions, man.
Is the answer to this question no?
Yes.
Pick an emotion that is overrated in modern American society and then argue for its continued perpetuation.
Okay, disgust is overrated. I'll tell you why it's overrated, and then I'll explain why I think it should be perpetuated. So I think it's overrated because, disgust is such an easy emotion. Just show somebody a sewer, show somebody anything, show someone my cringing, awkward face, and you'll get some sort of disgust. But, I think that there's also a purpose for it. I mean, I think that we live in a free country, and there should be free emotions, and sometimes there are things to be disgusted about. Some heinous crime, some really wicked thing, but I think it should be used sparingly. I think it's one of those emotions that's just like everyone's disgusted, but I think it should be used sparingly, and then in that proper portion, I think it's got its place.
What kind of movies do you like?
Oh, dude, I could go on for hours, man. My favorite movie is Jurassic Park. I love aliens, the thing, so you're kind of seeing a theme there. Sci-fi horror, kind of getting close to cosmic horror, hint, hint. But, no, and I love gothic horror, too. Me and some of my friends for church, we're going to actually do a gothic horror get-together. Hasn't culminated yet, but I'm optimistic about it. But yeah, anything like The Innocents, The Night of the Hunter, with its German expressionism there, and anything with a sense of gorgeousness in the aesthetics, but also horror, as kind of a baseline. That's something that I really dig.
On that note, I suspect, like many people nowadays, fear is a large motivator for my actions. Describe your favorite 3 kinds of fear and what causes them in you.
Oh, whoa. This is on the spot. This is not nonsense. You tricked me, man. No. Okay. So anyway, fear. The 3 kinds of fear. Okay, well, there's one. Fear of nothingness. Fear of death. Again, most people, like me, they don't want to believe that there's nothingness after life. I don't believe there's nothingness after life. But it's still, unless you have proof of it, and I guess, faith is considered proof by some people. If you don't necessarily have that, you're going to always be in the back of, tingling in the back of your skull. You're still be thinking like, well, what if? What if there was nothing? And that's an existential fear. So that's the first type of fear. It's like the fear that there is no meaning in life, and we might as well all jump off the cliff of oblivion because that's where we're going anyway. I don't believe that. I believe in Jesus, but again, if you don't, it's a really scary thought. It's a really big fear, and I still have that fear, again, because I think everyone doubts. And yeah, again, honesty, one of my top qualities there. So just being honest. But okay, and then the second fear. I think the second fear is fear of rejection. Fear of that whatever you reach for, whether it's beautiful, whether it's comfort, whether it's music. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how you get rejected by music. That's the great thing about that. But no, that you're rejected by something that you love so much that it's a part of you, and that thus you must kind of almost reject yourself because, you're rejecting your artistic spirit because obviously you can't force things or people to be, a part of you. So I feel like fear of rejection is one of the biggest ones because it is partially a rejection of self, which is hard. And then third, I would say, I don't know. I would say it's a fear of evil. I would say it's a fear of evil where everyone has some really sick thoughts that they would never want to mention. I think that I'm actually going to tap into that. I'm still thinking about how to finish because I haven't done my ending for the story. I know I'm jumping a little ahead, but that's kind of something I want to tap into. It's just the fear of, untapped evil within everybody. And I think there is. And I think that's why you need to hold on to somebody. You need to hold on to, preferably a God like Jesus, but you need to hold on to something because if you don't, if you're entirely alone, I don't think there's any evil person won't go to. So, I just think that a fear of the latent evil in somebody, that'd be the third fear. So those are my 3 fears right there.
Nice. If a solar flare were to knock out the internet's infrastructure tomorrow, what would you miss most?
What I miss most? Well, I just got into stocks. So I would be like, wait, is Walmart finally going up?
Now that the solar flare is hit.
Exactly. Now I lose all my money. No, I don't know.
What are the Pop-Tarts planning tucked away in their secret little boxes?
Probably some really sweet sprinkled plan, man.
Why do you write? And more importantly, what do you write?
Why do I write? That's a really good question. So for me, the reason why I write is because I feel like, remember I told you that when inspiration hits or when you feel something so deep in you, you got to find a way out for it. You got to find an outlet for it, I think that's the main reason I write. Because a lot of my stories, not this one particularly, but this one's for class, but most of my stories are kind of semi-autobiographical in nature, which makes it tricky because you don't want to share it necessarily to all your friends because it's like, well, I think I see myself in there, but it's one of those ones where it's like, Fitzgerald did that too, where I think it's the most intimate and it's the most real when you write similarly to yourself. Obviously, all the characters are different, but some of the characters are different because you know that they're different. So anyway, for me, I write it as personal expression. I think it's something that, it's either that. I used to be a songwriter before I ever was into writing, so I wrote songs. which are really cheesy. Like, wow, this girl smiles, so beautiful. Stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's an expression. I think it's something that needs to be let out. And if it's not let out there, it might be let out in running, weightlifting, something. I just chose writing. So.
The blue pill turns you into a contrabass clarinet. The red pill seemingly does nothing at first. Whose portrait is hanging on the wall?
I guess Keanu Reeves.
Do dogs go to heaven and do bedrooms go to sleep?
Okay, so I don't think dogs actually have a soul. I know I'm going to get some flack for this, but so I think that dogs actually just kind of die in the dust. I'm going to get flack for this. I know I'm going to get flack for this, but as far as bedrooms, do bedrooms go to sleep? That's such a good existential question. I feel like we could talk an hour about just that. I would say no, because I think they're watching over us when we sleep. They're kind of creaking, the windows are tapped with rain. I think they're still sentient, personally.
If I asked you to, would you?
Depends.
Give a sales pitch for the latest line of military-grade Cheese Whiz products.
Okay. So we got this flamethrower, but it's not a flamethrower at all. It flames out cheese curds, man. And it's really gooey. It's kind of got this French salty sweet flavor, kind of a little buttery at the end. The finish, so yeah.
If ink came out of a different animal other than cephalopods, what would it be?
What's a cephalopod?
A cephalopod is a squid, cuttlefish, or octopus, I believe.
Oh, I have cuttlefish in my story. I should know that one.
Oh, wow.
Okay. If ink came out of another person, it should come out of my ears when I get angry. I feel like that'd be really funny. Just like, instead of like steam coming out of my ears, it's just ink.
Very nice.
It'd be fitting for a writer.
That is fair. Was Louis Armstrong right?
Oh, yeah, no, ain't no wonder. No, okay, here's the deal. So that's a harder question than it seems like. No, I would say that yes, he's right, because I do want to say it's a wonderful world. I think that we only get to see that in spurts. I think we only get to see it in little windows. But the optimist in me says whether it takes, prayer actually really being still, or whether it takes a drink with friends or hang out with people you love, I think there are moments when we do grasp that we're like, wow, this is a wonderful world. But then we just forget it like right afterwards. So I would say yes, but again, you got to take it in context.
What is one thing that hasn't yet been commodified but totally should be?
I think attention. Because it's already commodified, but we just don't admit it, Like, I'm such a attention seeker. So I feel like people will be like, oh, I'm going to give you 30 minutes of just pure attention right now. Like 100% concentration on all your And I think that should be commodified. It'd be like, what will you pay me, though, for that, for that 30 minutes of attention? I'll be, I don't know. I'll get you a taco or something. So I don't know. Maybe that's a way I can get a girl on a date or something. I don't know.
What is the proper relationship between fiction and reality? And more importantly, what is the difference?
That's a trick question. So there's a quote from a writer that I really like where he said that fiction is the lie that reveals a deeper truth. And I like that because I think it's true. I think that fiction, obviously it's fake. I mean, again, unless you're reading Tender as the Night, then he's just switching names out and using his life as a story. But like most stories, like even like The Sun Also Rises, it's fake, but it really digs into the questions like, what are we doing here? Why are we so lonely all the time? Why are we isolated? Why are we always searching? If we can't find what we want, what do we do then? And I think those are things that are so real that we never touch upon in real life, And it's the things that drive us, it's the things that motivate us, it's the things that cause us to stop, but we don't talk about it because it's just safer to push it and brush it to the side. So
you're saying that in some sense, fiction is more real than reality?
I believe that. I believe that it may be not more real, but it's more authentic.
I often can't tell what emotions I have at any given moment, or if I do have them, which one is quote-unquote true. Should I consign myself to emotional pluralism, the romantic equivalent of Orwellian doublethink, or do you have a way of determining what to do with your emotions?
That's a really interesting question. So compartmentalizing emotions, it's tough. So for me, if I'm sad, usually I get fixated on something and I'm just like, can't get out of my head. I get anxious, get stressed. So I feel like as soon as you can I don't want to sound like a new age religion or something, but clear your mind of some of the stuff that you're just totally obsessed or fixated with. And whether it's stress, whether it's whatever it is, as long as you can clear that away, I think you can get a better perspective. And I think with as far as again, I forgot the original question, but I think it's like how your emotions are dealing with. So, I would say that once you find happiness or something resembling that, which to me is like I can look forward to tomorrow and I'm not like dreading it. So if you can hold on to that, just try to figure out what caused that, and I don't know, hold on to a sliver of it, I guess.
Why did the dragons leave us?
That's assuming that dragons existed, but I'll give you a pass.
Which food loves you as much as you do it?
Dude, to be honest, Taco Bell actually loves me back. I know now that's gonna be again someone like no, heck no. But everyone's like, oh, Taco Bell gives me constipation, diarrhea, whatever. Taco Bell actually treats me pretty well, so I would say that one. But I mean, honestly, I don't know. I love, and again, that Taco Bell's not Mexican food, but I love Mexican food. Tortas, burritos, of course nachos, which again, it's been kind of Americanized, but I don't know. Like I said, I'm gonna push back. A lot of people are like, oh, Mexican food or whatever, and Taco Bell just doesn't agree, but it actually agrees with me. So, yeah, I'm gonna go with that.
Is justification justified?
Depends.
Is it possible to unbelieve something once you have believed it? And if so, do you find this show unbelievable?
Oh man, it's a brain teaser. So yeah, I mean, there's such a thing as doubt. So I do definitely think that you can unbelieve something you believe, which is one of the saddest truths in life, I think. Because I think we all believe in great things when we're young, and as we get older, we start questioning those things. Whether it's right to question them or not is a whole another story. Is this podcast unbelievable? I think it's getting more believable by the minute, man. I think I'm starting to believe in it. So let's hope that doesn't unbelieve,
And now, a story by Josiah Lijiequest.
All right, so this is the Weirdo Josiah S. Lijiequest. The S stands for Samuel. I don't know. I always put the middle initial because F. Scott Fitzgerald, he's got the initial there. So I'll always give tribute to my influences when I can. But, okay, so this story is Lovecraftian influence. It's actually for a class. It is Professor Hughes' Writing 364, I believe, which is magazine writing. So I'm doing it for Weird Tales. That's my target magazine. Obviously, I'm probably not going to get into that magazine. But so I've always been a Lovecraftian fan. I don't want to say always, but I've, for a while now. And Edgar Allan Poe and Lovecraft are like two of my literary heroes. I know I said I like Fitzgerald, but like Poe was probably even first, just because like Telltale Heart and some of those stories we read when we were young. I've actually read all of Edgar Allan Poe and H.P. Lovecraft, like their entire short story collection. So I know a thing or two about them. And this story is all about Lovecraftian fiction. It's gonna have it's meta, so it's gonna have a bunch of references. They're all going to a to a Lovecraftian amusement park. So it's kind of like a little bit like Scream in that way, just a little meta. But hopefully, it's got that atmosphere, which is one of my favorite things in a Gothic or Lovecraftian story. And hopefully you'll enjoy it. So, yeah, here we go. Jim couldn't believe Astor was sitting beside him. Her freckled legs bumped into his jean-covered thighs as they drove along. They shared Psychology 304 together and had barely talked. Donovan's Sunshine Superman crackled through the radio static, quiet but evident in the body swaying. So what is this place? Some haunted house shit or what? Benny hollered from the passenger seat, feet up on the dash. Sounds lame, Rowland jeered, popping open a can of beer from the back seat next to Astor. The driver, Pete, held up his hand in a gesture of authority. No, guys. This isn't some Disney-fied Eddie Murphy ghost shit. This is the real deal. This is the first bona fide Lovecraftian amusement park. Rowland snorted, lips foaming with beer. Love what? Is this some sort of Woodstock festival? Like an orgy or shit? Everyone laughed. No, it's Lovecraftian, the author. The guy who created the Cthulhu mythos, the Mountains of Madness, the Shadow of Innsmouth. Any of this a ringing a bell? Nope, but it sounds pretty lame, Rowland replied, before downing and crushing his first beer. Astor wriggled up straight before speaking. Shut up, Rowland. You don't even know what you're talking about. The Dexter Ward Park is unlike anything you've ever seen. It's the scariest, spookiest, most electrifying ride of your life. And if I were you, I wouldn't drink too many of those beers, because you're going to be puking after going on the Eric Zahn roller coaster. Wait, you've been to the park? Rowland blinked. Oh yeah, bunch of times. Y'all gonna love it, she said, smiling over at Jim. Jim smiled back at her blue eyes, then turned over to the passenger window. The Vermont fall blazed past their windows in waves of scarlet, gold, and orange, and flurries of leaves swept and dusted the dappled pavement. It was a crisp, clear, windy day, the perfect weather for kite flying or sailing a boat. Jim opened the window, and they could all smell crushed maple leaves and birch sap. The road winded up and around the hillsides, and Rowland almost hurled out the backseat window. Dude, are we going to an amusement park or a monastery? Because we're really out in the boonies right now. Nah, we're going to the right place, Pete said. This remoteness is just part of the park's charm. You know, gives it that authentic, creepy vibe. Rowland rolled his eyes. Benny spotted a bat fluttering around and quickly closed the window. Aster drummed her thighs with her palms, and Jim just kept looking around, always keeping Aster in his peripheral vision. Hey, Jimmy, you ever been to the park? Aster asked. No, but I'm excited to try it out. I've only heard good things. Aster chuckled, shook her head. I hope you've heard horrifying things about the place, because that's the only way it's going to be any fun. I still remember my first time. Couldn't sleep for weeks. But you know what? Just made me want to go back. Lights emerged from the forested hills. Silhouetted and shining in front of the sunset stood a huge castle, and interconnecting sideshows and roller coasters beaded with vermilion lights. The park was nestled in a valley, completely encircled by rustling forest. Lines of shadowed people stretched out for hundreds of yards, looking like ants crawling to a picnic. A full harvest moon looms rusty in the horizon, keeping an eye on the proceedings just below. Pete glanced over at all his passengers. Impressive, huh? Jim nodded, his mouth slightly ajar. For a second, he forgot his leg was touching Aster's. How have I not heard of this place before? Jim said. Oh, you just haven't been hanging with the right crowd, Aster said with an elbow jab and a wink. The vaudeville sounds of brass bands and calliope whistles spilled into the air as Pete looked for a parking spot. Crunching on the gravel, his black pickup finally pulled into one of the parking spaces, which were defined chalk outlines of coffins. Oh, that's cute, Rowland sneered, starting on his third beer. They all stepped out of the car and looked around. In the foreground, hundreds of people strolled through alleys of shooting galleries, sideshows, and restaurants, all of the structures distorted and misshapen like German expressionist sets. Most of the crowd wore costumes, octopus heads with yellow eyes, tentacled hair, hex-checkered armor, pentagram-dotted shirts, and more slimy tentacles acting as legs and coattails. The air was ripe and rancid with seafood and butchered meat, sweat and the metallic hint of blood. In the crimson glow of the lights, retro loudspeakers repeated the names of rides and prizes. The stars were hidden from all the light, and the harvest moon seemed to dominate the sky. The castles rose in the background, an ivy-quilted, tower-pronged structure that was more of a maze than any mansion. Roller coasters weaved around and through the edifice, like glowworm constellations flickering in the acrid night.
We'll return to our careless caravan of could care lesses after the break. You're listening to KWOU. There comes a point in one's life when one becomes tired of beginning in media res. Without leading you on further, that point is now. It becomes so tedious to awake to a world that is already moving on without you, having to introduce and reintroduce every element on the table until at last the compelling mystery that once held the audience's every breath ransom is now nothing more than a chore. I hate exposition, but I hate disposition as well. Where does that leave us? Can we begin at the beginning and have everything explained without having to explain anything? Maybe. And so, dear listeners, as the present day rounds its crisp and clear seventh to last morning, we turn our gaze behind us back to where it all began. And where did it begin, you ask? The Flying Fox Inn is perhaps the most famous inn west of the Arbitrary River. Not that that matters much, seeing as the second most famous inn west of the Arbitrary River, the Giving Gopher, is the subject of our scrutiny this morning. I would be tempted to describe the inn in vivid detail, remarking on its intimately low ceilings and rustic interior, suffused with an aura of... you almost got me. It's indeed quite a futile task, a redundancy to say so, I know, to describe the gopher's interior, because as you all very well know, the gopher exists in a liminal space between its own reality and your conception of it. So indeed, that which you think is the gopher is the gopher. It is self-describing, alive and as strange as you, good sir, as you stare blankly out your eyelids into the altar of light in front of you. 'Tis the giving nature of the gopher. It gives itself unto you in an active way, quite unlike those rigid panels of the Flying Fox. Of course, many people find this active participation to be unsettling, to say the least, and so opt for the more tame halls of the General Fitzgerald to soothe their insecurities about the nature of existence and perception. Oh well, it would not be a gift if it could not be refused. In any case, and there are quite a few cases being checked in and out of the gopher as we speak, I remind you, second most popular is still pretty damn popular. Now that the issue of establishing the setting has been resolved by a self-establishing setting, we shall turn our attention, or not, you are not obligated to a precocious little girl sitting in what could be argued as the lobby. I won't lead you on any further, as it is immediately apparent that this is a young Miss Hatter, ever hawkish in her looking for looks to look at. What is she doing there? Where are her parents? The concierge asks, concerned from a professional standpoint. The young Miss Hatter replies casually but elegantly that she does not know. She has not seen them since yesterday night at the dinner table, conversing quietly in the adult tongue of grave matters concerning their luggage. The concierge offers to put out a call for them, but the young lady politely declines, saying that these things happen often and that they'd return soon enough. The concierge, being the best at what he does, notices the welling up of tears in the utmost corner of the child's eye and offers a complimentary giving gopher tissue. This time the child obliges, but it is far too little, only a little too late. For the first time in what would soon be a surreal chain, Miss Hatter was downright miserable. She cursed the luggage that lugged its way into her life, and she resolved to discover its contents and, if for no other reason than catharsis, destroy it. This was her solemn vow. Meanwhile, and the while is always mean, the vampire extraordinaire known only as De Clement is giving a routine presentation to a herd of dead-eyed high schoolers. Little does he know, in general. But he's never let that stop him, and look where he is now, standing in front of a bunch of unbelievably disinterested teenagers. A twinge of doubt shoots up De Clement's spine, but he is in far too deep to back out now. He takes the plunge. Does anyone have any questions? Dreadful silence. A river cascades from his brow. In general, I mean, the presentation? Not even worth asking questions about. No, I meant the questions about life. Big questions, questions you can't answer, at least not while on school property, am I right? A few tittered, and the heap began to stir. The teacher in the back began to scowl, but was outscowled by De Clement's signature scowl of the cowl of the great horned owl, which sent the teacher out of the room and back to graduate school. One young soul, ever blunt and ironically sincere, began, "Do vampires feel guilty about killing people?" Another twinge of the spine. De Clement crushed it with his teeth and smiled. "Sometimes, as one feels guilty for grabbing a second donut from the continental breakfast bar in the basement of the Giving Gopher next to where the luggage is stored. But no, not in the traditional sense of the word. All guilt dies with the person before they step into their undeath." "Wow," said the youth, forgetting to be ironic. "Thank you, that was a very good question. Another?" This time the youth raised its hand. "Yes, you in the back." "Can I get rich being a vampire?" "No, you cannot. However, you would make the company as a whole very rich indeed, a favor that the board of executives would not forget. Being a vampire is about community service, and so while other more predatory businessmen invest in potential capital to amass, you'd be investing in your community, something that always gives greater returns in the long run, and being immortal as we are, it's always about the long run. Whether it be a ma and pop shop down the street, a local laundromat, or a beloved but oft controversial inn, my company stands for the flourishing of society in all forms. We believe in this city. We believe in you." This aroused an applause from the children, some standing to their feet in youthful vigor. De Clement beamed, proud of himself for being able to lie so inspiringly. To carry the momentum of the moment, a redundancy yet again, I know. Forward he pointed towards a standoffish young lady in the back implied to be Augustine. As always, so it seems anyway. She wasn't having it. "So what? Why should your belief in something mean anything to me? Don't deny that this isn't just some needlessly elaborate sales pitch to get more employees. If you truly do care, tell me why I should become a vampire." De Clement scowled at the interruption of his adulation, but his scowl was broken by the fire behind this student's eyes. Now here was a keeper. Here was a vampire. What is your name, miss? It's already been clearly established that it's Augustine. I know what you're doing. Augustine, belief is all you have. Like remoras, we must cling to the side of the predators that can most devour us. To be without belief is to be destitute, left to the pitiless open ocean of life. The self is no grounds to descend, Augustine. The self is no ground to stand above the water. In fact, the self is not. There is only the company. Though you may die, we vampires are immortal. The company shall live forever. You are indeed correct. This is only a ploy, but it is not without reason. There is an imperative here. Do you want to live your whole life in media res? Or do you want to rise above it all and be a vampire? And for the first time in what soon would be a serial chain, Augustine was born anew. This was her solemn vow. Meanwhile, one of the high schoolers had left the assembly early because he was, above all else, bored. This pegs him immediately as loose, the not yet mildly, not yet sad, not yet man. He has not yet told his parents that he is bored, but then again it'd be much sadder if he didn't. Luce had resolved to leave things unresolved because that's the aesthetic he was shooting for. True, this is a very juvenile way of going about things, but while we all age, only some of us grow up. Isn't it funny how often that idea is thrown around as a good thing? As if we are all subliminally terrified of what lay beyond high school, and so we all make a silent pact with each other that though we graduate, nothing changes. I digress, Katrina. That's what I do. That's what Matt Brown has always done. These imbeciles think that they can now salvage some sort of linearity from the shipwreck that is their past, but I know it's all non-causal, isn't it? Things happen and then things happen. Present tense, infinitive, always. Well, that's so romantic, Matt. I am anything but romantic, Katrina. You too are floundering about, mucking around in the seabed that De Clement lied to you about. Do you really even think that he existed? I made him up just now with my abominable French accent. There is nothing for you here. Why are you still here? There is nothing compelling you other than yourself. If you cannot see that, Katrina, then you are as lost in your foundness as the rest of them. Why are you so angry, Matt? It's Matt Brown. Why are you so angry, Matt Brown? There is no why, Katrina. I am simply angry as a positive fact of existence. Do you know how rare that is? I can't find anything other than this anger. It is the shark to which I cling, feeding off its filth until I gag, but even then the gag would have been more real to me than you are. Why am I talking to you? I thought you said that there was no why. True, but that would imply that my talking to you is as much a positive fact of my seething anger towards existence, and I would very much like to deny you that much credit. Well, that doesn't make me feel very good. Revel in it then. Maybe you'll find something positive in feeling useless. And Matt Brown left, just as he did before. He's been at this for weeks, even though it has only been a day since he left. When you are this slow, time waits for you, stretching out like a desert before you, giving your mind time to cook in the relentless sun of now what, now what, now what. I hate Matt Brown, and he hates me. But one thing we mutually hate as much as the other: poetry. She said, "Don't pick that. That's Jesus. That's the little flower that frees us. It's the only narcissus in the field." And I didn't go and pick it, but it sang to me like a cricket, for it held within it a truth concealed. But what of it, this anecdote? A poison implies an antidote. Surely it's just meaningless happenstance. I can't help but start seeing things, so we'll see what this season brings. As far as I'm concerned, I have to dance. I scoffed at symbols and signs, and he rages against grand designs. I've never been much for high fashion. Still, they always appear to me, and I become the epitome of the mad poet ever consumed by passion. I wish I could play it straight, pitch it right over the plate, but I gotta watch in case you steal second. I don't want to have to play this game and have everything be the same, so whatever you set up, you bet I'll wreck it. What say you of Ouroboros, the aurora borealis, wrapped wild, lofty, and green around the world? Can you not hear his gnawing as the permafrost is thawing? Watch the conqueror worm become uncurled. I can't go back. Not even for you. Tune in next week for the next episode. Feel free to take a complimentary mint on your way out, but do not actually take one. Feel free to take one, certainly, but by no means follow through on that feeling of freedom. That way I can continue to oppress you with your knowing consent. Anyways, I'm Jasper Beck, and this is The Amazing, Unbelievable Adventures of Dr. Theophilius Crux, Ph.D., and his faithful companion, Archibald the Tasmanian Emu.